pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, everybody, welcome. Alice, can you give us a roll call, please?
Yes. Alderman Perchakos?
Here.
Alderman Capitano? Alderman Galogly?
Here.
Alderman Smith?
Here.
Alderman Deskin?
Here.
Alderman Vandermeer? Alderman Coretta?
Here.
Alderman Rulman Bartleson?
Here. Tongue twister.
Yes, 6 present.
All right, very good. Just a quick update before I get to everybody else's liaison reports. Alderman Deskin and I went to the county for a meeting to talk about the Bruce Road Caton Farm Bridge. You know, there's been some points of contention about a middle route. We went in there advocating that instead of building an entirely new road to run parallel to either Cedar, Gauger, or the highway, that we actually utilize the highway. I think we, made a case of why that will save possibly hundreds of millions of dollars and shorten the timeline. The county seemed to be thinking that it's too difficult because you can't mix like federal dollars and county dollars with a project that runs along the highway. In any case, we are seeking to have an audience with IDOT, with the feds. I've reached out to Congressman Lipinski and Foster, see if we can't make some sense. I understand there's rules about how projects can work together, but it just seems to me that utilizing an existing road that already has all the infrastructure in place that could possibly save $100 million on a $600 million project seems wisdom. So hopefully we can get the political folks to see the light and maybe make a better decision on the middle route. I think Darren, you did a lot of good homework for that. Appreciate looking up past notes and finding out where things were at. It helped us in our meeting make a case. So thank you. All right, anybody got anything for their liaisonships?
I do. I will. Under Ben's section of it, we will be talking about sidewalks. So that's
Okay.
what I have. Thank you.
All right, we'll bring it up then. All right, well, if there's nothing else, we can, oh, Joanne, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I just have an update at our next meeting on November 18th. We have asked Jody Mariano from Tesco and Associates to come out and present to us what they've come up with after going out to the main corridors and how we're going to dress them up. So that's going to happen next meeting, and also she'll have funds, how much it's going to cost, and then we can discuss at that time how we're going to fund it.
That's great. Thank you so much for doing that. Oh, by the way, I know Mr. Lowe is in the audience, and he always asks me about Fairmont. Also in that meeting today with the Bruce Road Caton Farm Bridge, I know there's some concern in Fairmont, too, about where the road goes through. Some of the making to leadership down in Fairmont, although it's not Lockport, a lot of people come to me about it because they just kind of make the connection that it is Lockport sometimes. But, one of the, I talked about to some of the folks that are in leadership positions or have taken leadership positions in this talk in Fairmont, is that, look, having the road go through Oak Street and then curving up to Bruce, it actually is a good opportunity for economic development so that we can actually get some things down in that area that have never been able to be there before. Although I was concerned about some sound walls that were being put up, which would actually divide the community as opposed to give opportunity for economic development. I did bring that up today at the county meeting, that they really should take a closer look at that. I know they have a meeting with those residents tomorrow, and so my concerns on their behalf were voiced. But still, that's kind of a Fairmont piece of the puzzle. So, in any case. All right, why don't we mosey on?
Real quick, if you want to, Mayor, for planning and zoning, just so everyone knows, probably the next November 18th. November 18th meeting, we'll bring some more information about new planning and zoning, the new rules and guidelines that we're kind of moving forward with
Okay, good.
in progress.
Right on. I keep jumping ahead. Is that everybody? Has anybody got anything else from liaisons? Okay. All right, very good. I have this city clerk's report. Is we just talking about the calendar?
Yes, presented before you is the 2016 annual meeting calendar, which was in your packet, which is presented every year at this time. That's really all I have.
I did get together with as many of the entities in Lockport that I could muster together, whether it was the library, St. Joe's, as they do Oktoberfest, the Park District. I mean, every entity that has an event during the year, I asked them to come together for a meeting so that we could try to find ways to get all of our events on a community calendar. So I noticed last year there were a couple of events like the Heritage Fest and World War II Days and Moose Fest all were on the same night. And, you know, kind of, I think if maybe some talk and some dialogue can happen with a community calendar that we're all in sync with, I think maybe we can alleviate some of those problems. So it went over well. We're going to have Ryan put together a community calendar that all these different entities can access, put their stuff on there, and then we can all have that calendar posted on our respective websites. So we're going to try to sync up our city events as well with other entities. So FYI there. All right, Senior Benson, what do you got?
Thank you, Mayor, Council. The first item on the agenda tonight is with Chevron, and we have some of them here in the audience, and they'll be making a presentation. Chevron and the City of Lockport have an annexation agreement and a redevelopment agreement for the old Texaco Chevron site. This council has agreed in a resolution back in January of 2014 to work with Chevron in renegotiating that annexation agreement, and we will be bringing those to you. We included drafts for those two MOUs in your packet tonight, and I know Owen is going to give you, and his team is going to give you an update as to what's going on the site and what they've been able to achieve over the last few years in redeveloping that location for potential business parks. So with that, may I just invite Owen up to introduce his team and kind of go through a brief presentation on where they are today. We're not asking for approval of these documents today. We just wanted to give you an early draft of where we're looking at, and it involves the dam and weir, and we'll be still, the administration and the team will be negotiating with Chevron in a future date to bring documents to you for approval.
Good evening.
Welcome all.
Thank you. Thanks, Mayor. Thank you, Alderman, Chief, staff for having us. As Mr. Benson described, we have a matter of business with the memoranda of understanding, the drafts of which you guys have received in your packages for tonight. Our purpose with this presentation is to provide an update to you all on the work that has gone on at the site. So it does span the last few years, but it also goes back to the beginning of the remediation time, what we've accomplished in getting the old refinery site dismantled, cleaned up, and ready for new development. We'll also go over some of the aspects of the annexation agreement. I know some of you members of council are newer than others and may not be as familiar with what's gone on at our site and how that relates to this future business that we have that was described by Ben. So with that, I'll start this presentation. The picture there is of the old office building at the refinery site that was demolished this year, one of the last steps of our dismantling of the former refinery site. There's a picture of the refinery at closure, an aerial photo. This is 1983, which was 2 years after the site closed down, stopped operations. You'll see some more pictures of the site. I'm going to go through this fairly rapidly because this is a summary presentation of things that have gone on, and I know some of these older things would be of interest as well, and we can slow down if any of you would like us to slow down. But
Actually, can you go, for the new guys like me, can you go back to one slide and just put the cursor over the site that you were?
Sure, if I can figure out how to go back. There's previous. Okay, so the former refinery site that we're talking about is here.
Took all of that, okay.
Yeah, there's about a 580-acre parcel or group of parcels that are here. And it's between the Illinois Central Railroad and the Sanitary Ship Canal, and the southern boundary, for lack of a better place to put it, 6th or 5th Street on the west side of our site, and 2nd Street on the east side of the site. All right, so the refinery began operations in 1911. It was a refinery like other refineries you know, where gasoline was produced, diesel, other fuels. One of the great events in the history of the refinery was the expansions that happened with World War II. That changed quite a bit of the refining operations here and at many other refineries around the country, as you could expect. But that led to a big boom in operations there and an expansion of tankage and other equipment that was there. The maximum output of the refinery was 80,000 barrels per day. That's a rating in the refinery world, which is a little less than what Citgo produces today. Citgo's production rate, I'm not sure what it is, but when we first put this back together several years ago, they were, I think, down at like 120 or 150,000 barrels per day. So in its heyday, there were more than 1,000 people working per day there at the site. That would have included the Texaco employees as well as contractors who had come to do work. Today, 3 decades later, we continue to support the community. We've been one of the sponsors of Canal Days for the last several years. We've been involved with the development of Heritage Village as it's come along. We provide a donation to the Lockport Fish and Food Pantry each year. We built a public use bike path through the site that connected the city's bike path with the bike paths north of our site up in Lamont. We've been sponsor of several other events over the years, and we try to also show the community what's going on at the site. We have an annual site tour. Several of you aldermen have been on that site tour. I've taken folks around, and we're always happy to have a separate tour if anybody wants one, but during those public events, we get anywhere from 70 to 120 people show up, and we'll have different buses go around the site, and we'll talk through what we've done there. Here's a more recent aerial photo of the site, and again, I'll show the cursor over that for anybody who's interested in, where the site is. So what picture you saw before with all the tankage and the various units, now you're seeing something much more recent. This was 2013. You still have the Shell pipeline crude oil tank farm up here at the north end, but as you can see, there's not a lot left of the infrastructure of the former refinery site. We've been busy, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. Here's another 2013 aerial photo to give any of you a perspective of where we are in the site. This photo will get used again later in the presentation as I show you which parcels make up the business park that's proposed, which parcel belongs to Shell. So you'll see this one again. So what has been happening? As I said, the remedial effort's gone on for about 3 decades. That began with the construction of a landfill back in the mid-'80s that we call LF2. That was completed in 1987 and went into what's called post-closure care, which is our management of the landfill, making sure it's performing as expected and in good shape. Since 2003, we have been moving soils that don't meet the state standards for an industrial commercial reuse into a corrective action management unit, which is another landfill, for lack of a better way to describe it. It's built to all of the standards of landfills that are required to have with respect to liners and capping membranes and leachate collection systems. And to date, in those landfills, we've disposed of properly over 2.5 million cubic yards of soils that did not meet the state standards for industrial commercial reuse. We've also removed a lot of steel. You can see the number of feet of pipe that have been dismantled and recycled. With that, there was also about 300,000 tons of concrete that have been recycled. And we also had a sediment removal project from the I&M Canal. I'm going to show you some pictures of that. With respect to the redevelopment half of this slide, we'll talk about that more in a few slides down. Some pictures of the demolition and dismantling activities are here for you. The above-ground demolition of a former refinery site was primarily done in the 80s and 90s. Most of those above-ground structures were down by the time we got to 1999. There were a few tanks left. This is a picture of us taking down a tank on the upper right-hand side. On the left-hand side, you can see some of the below-ground demolition, and that was extensive too. These units had big foundations and a lot of piping interconnected under the ground that had to be searched out and pulled out of the ground as well. For our soils remediation, you can see a picture here of one of our digs to bedrock. In general, our digs did go down to bedrock, and we would clean the bedrock surface when we got down there too. Soils, as I said, that didn't meet the state industrial standard were taken up to our on-site landfills. Soils that did meet the state standards through testing were reused at the site. Here's a photo to give you a sense of the clean out of the I&M Canal that happened. That was done over a 2-year period. This is some of the 2008 work that was done on-site. We diverted the water that was in the I&M Canal and took the sediments down to bedrock and went so far as to wash the sidewalls and clean everything out here. I'll show you another picture from 2009. This was right outside the public landing. We came down to 9th Street with the effort. You can see that we're down there brooming the bedrock off after we got the sediments out of there as well. That was a big project. We ended up with about 150,000 cubic yards of stabilized sediments inside our CAMU, disposed of properly, again, from that project. Here's a picture of our CAMU this year. This is a couple of months back. This is during the capping effort, which has been one of our major construction milestones this year. You see topsoil going down. To the left side of that picture, that area has already received topsoil and has been seeded. The topsoil will keep going to the right, and that's going over a clay layer, a vegetative soil layer, and below that are a couple layers of membranes and synthetics that will prevent precipitation from getting down into the waste area. So the CAMU has been being built since 2003. It is now, for all effects and purposes, entering post-closure care as well. We are, for all practical purposes, done with our soils project at the site. We are done, for all practical purposes, with the 99.9% of the dismantling of the former refinery site. There's a little bit of work left with respect to the dam and the weir that we have before you in the memoranda of understanding, in one of them. We have a little bit of work to do around the edges of these landfills to get our drainage, stormwater drainage set. I'm going to move on, because I'm trying to keep it quick here. So this figure shows our 580-acre site that I tried to put the cursor around earlier. The various colors and hatching on here shows the different reports that were submitted to IEPA for our efforts. Each of those colored hatches presents an area that IEPA approved our soils work and gave us a determination that no further action was required to meet the state standards for the soils in those areas. So that was an important milestone for us. To date, we've had 29 of these NFAs issued. You can see 29 pieces on this legend. You can't necessarily read because it's kind of small on this. I didn't know that from the visual perspective you really needed to see the various parts of that. I'd be happy to present that to you if you're interested. But our original 580-acre investigation site was reduced to 148 acres by EPA a couple of years ago. So we're around right along. These 148 acres are here. It's at the northern end of our site around the tank farm. We're finishing all that work up, as I said, this year. Reports for these 148 acres and these various parcels that are colored here are into IEPA already. They're under review. We expect to get no further action letters from those as well in the same fashion that we did for the earlier ones. We have a groundwater investigation program at the site as well. The site's been divided up into these 6 areas that are shown to the right here. One of the areas is broken up into 3 sub-areas. All of those areas have work plans that have been approved by the IEPA. Work has begun on all of those work plans, and we're gathering data to pursue the no further action requests that, in the same fashion that we did with the soils with IEPA. We have been collecting groundwater data since 1981 at the site. That data gets submitted in reports to IEPA, sometimes quarterly. More recently, they've been semi-annual reports. All those reports have been at the library. We have a public repository at the library for all of our submittals for anybody who might be interested. but we'll be working over the next couple of years to finish up all this work as well. So that's a quick synopsis of what we've done from a remediation standpoint. All of that remediation is done in part to manage and reduce and finish our obligations to leave behind the site in the way that it should be left behind. There's also an aspect of trying to prepare it for some redevelopment. I mentioned that our cleanup has been to state's industrial commercial standards. That is one of the constraining facts on where we're headed with respect to redevelopment. There were a couple of annexation agreements that we'll discuss here in a few minutes that have happened here with the city. I mentioned earlier that we had constructed a public use bike path that was opened in 2003. Star Business Park, some of you have heard that term before. Many of you have talked a lot with us about Star Business Park. For those of you who are new to it, there's about 200 acres at the south end of the former refinery site that are being marketed as a business park, an industrial commercial park. It's zoned M1 and M2. Another aspect of redevelopment at the site, there's a 130-acre crude oil tank farm that is now owned and operated by Shell. That is not a Chevron facility, it's a Shell facility. They have been keeping that thing operating for several years now, and they have had ownership of the property since 2011. We have been included in some of the planning that the city has with respect to the downtown master plan and the TIF district. Our property is included in some of that planning. Those of you who have been familiar with that document will have seen some of the vision for how our site might fit into it. Another aspect of the redevelopment that has been underway is with our annexation agreements, we entered into a degree of study of the floodplain at our site. With the findings that we had with respect to that developed into a larger flood study that included the west side of Lockport. That effort has led the city and Chevron to pursue, under a couple of venues, letters of map revision to the floodplain for the west side of Lockport. So I'm going to do a couple of slides on the redevelopment, then I'm going to turn it over to Mark Gershon, and he will finish the couple of other slides we have on the annexation agreements. I mentioned earlier in the presentation that I would get back to that aerial photo that showed some of the breakdown of property. So the red circled property is Chevron-owned property that is part of the property that's being marketed and is for sale as part of the business park that we call Star Business Park. The blue circled area is city-owned property. Roughly half of that, a little bit more than half of that, used to be part of the former refinery site. Texaco and then Chevron leased that from the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Chicago. There is another parcel south of the city-owned property, which is Chevron-owned property. I mentioned a couple of landfills. One of those is here. This is the 1987 closed landfill, LF2, which stands for Land Farm Number 2, rather than Landfill Number 2. I'm not going to get into why that is, but that's what the name of it is, Land Farm Number 2. Up here is where the CAMU is that we showed you the pictures of, and we have the yellow around the Shell pipeline crude oil tank farm. So Chevron continues to perform the post-closure care on LF2 and will begin post-closure care on the CAMU. The city owns about 70 acres over here. The bike path recreational trail that we mentioned runs along the I&M Canal through the former refinery site. And we are looking at industrial commercial development down here in the south end of the site. With that, I'm going to turn this over to Mark Gershon, who is another member of our team. I'll let him introduce himself to you as well.
Thank you. Mayor, Ben, members of the City Council. Always a pleasure to be back in Lockport. I recognize with the time, I'm going to go through some of this quickly, but it's important, I think, to get a good sense of what the background here is and on what governs the property. In 2000, the property, most of the property was annexed to the city pursuant to an annexation agreement. It was owned in M2. Essentially, it had previously been in the county under the I3 zoning. We not only brought it in under a lower intense district here, but also eliminated some of the heavier uses which we'll walk through. Also approved a concept plan for development of the entire property. One of the things you'll see throughout this, and if you're new to city council, you're gonna hear us talk about a lot, is that the property is limited by the fact that its main axis is Second Street. So that really drives what can be developed there almost more than anything else on the site. Restricted the land use on it. Some of the things that you'll hear us talk about, we've talked in the past and will again, is that what makes this property unique and valuable is that rather than being a greenfield development in the middle of the highway somewhere with no real connection to it, is that this property is not only part of your downtown, but it's also got connections to roadways, rails, shipping, heavy electronic and other utility infrastructure. What happened a few years later in 2008 is that we went through 2 different annexations. You remember from those pictures, essentially the Shell tank farm, a little bit more property than that, but generically that property was brought in as one annexation agreement. And then we took that original 2000 annexation because the tank farm property had never been annexed before. We brought in the other property and modified and amended it to allow for better development of that site. Wasn't a lot of material changes in terms of what could be developed on the property. Same concept plan, some new illustrative plans as development has changed, all sort of dependent on what eventually happens out there. But really, you're looking at light manufacturing, warehouse, distribution development, and again, some of those benefits I've talked about that utility infrastructure. The tank farm annexation agreement, while it allows for the same uses, for your purposes, probably most importantly, allows for preservation. It was really designed for preservation of that tank farm use. Not going to talk a lot about that right now because unlikely we're going to come into you with a lot of development issues on the tank farm. It's really more the annexation agreement for the Star Business Park that really changes on that. Another unique thing that happened in this document is that we first started discussing, at the city's request, a TIF district for the property. Looking at it as a way of helping to make your downtown develop and being able to use the revenues from the business park both to support the downtown and to pay for some of the infrastructure expenses on that. So it really brought in, wrapped everything up together. I talked to you before about some of the uses are excluded. I'm not going to walk through all these, but these just give you some of the sense of all of these are permitted in your M2 district. They're all prohibited on our property as a result of the annexation agreement. Just a general sense, and Owen's walked through, let's look at a mouse here, walk through some of the different business parks here, but you've got, again, recognize this is an illustrative plan. It's going to be dependent completely on the type of development that comes in. You could see a much smaller number of buildings, you could see more, but this just gives you a sense of what could come out there. You've got business parks 1, 2, and 3 here. One being this property here, essentially east of the I&M Canal. West of the I&M Canal and west of the I&M Canal and south of 2nd Street is Business Park 2. It's the only part of the property that's actually zoned for M1, although the M2 uses are allowed on it. And then north of 2nd Street here is Business Park 3. What you're looking at on building area, again, is building area that was based on what we thought we could get through with our traffic engineers, working with the city's consultants, what type of development you could get through on this property. If you ended up with a use that had far less traffic generated from it, we could have more development there, which would bring additional benefits to you. Similarly, if we had a use that needed more traffic, it's going to reduce what can be done there. So a lot of this is really driven by 2nd Street. A lot of marketing efforts going on. Many of you know Carla Baker, who heads that side of this for Chevron. She's in heavy discussions with a number of brokers, developers, and users, some of whom we previously brought in and talked to the city about. And we're excited to see when we first get that first development happening out there. Those of you who, like me, spend all of your time in the development world, whether representing municipalities or developers, know it's really often that first user who then helps you to kickstart it and more things start happening out there. Talk about demand. Competition is I-355, I-55, and I-80. Obviously, those greenfield business parks along there have better, more direct access on highways. But what we have that others don't really is a mix of two things. One, it's the infrastructure we talked about before, but it's also access to downtown. And I will tell you, representing a lot of developers, people aren't really happy being located far away on the highway sometimes where, especially the smaller users, where they don't have the ability to have the kinds of restaurants, the kind of amenities, et cetera, you have in your downtown. Excuse me. And that obviously benefits those users as well in terms of populations supporting you. Real quick on what's happening right now. We are in discussion, and you have those MOUs before you for relocation of the guard shack. The picture you're seeing is actually the last time the guard shack was relocated. You know what year it was? I'm trying to see if I can read that on it.
Yeah, the photo would have been from the late 30s. The guard shack used to be on the east side of the I&M Canal, right where Heritage Village is right now. And it was moved over to where it's currently sitting on the west side of the I&M Canal, right at the main gate entrance for the Chevron site.
And as Owen mentioned, what we're talking about is to move the guard shack to the Heritage Village at the request of the city, and similarly relocation of the I&M Canal Dam, and that's all based on the documentation you've got before you. At this point, recognizing time, et cetera, we'd be happy to respond to any questions you have, and we will definitely be back before you in the future as more of this develops.
Are you going to continue those public tours every May?
Yeah, the current plan is to continue the tours. At some point, they will likely stop, but for the coming year, we're still planning to have
I
one.
encourage everyone to attend those tours. It's very fascinating. A lot of the information you'll see on the PowerPoint presentation, but it also gives you a different vantage point of the city when you're actually on that property, you know, looking at the bridge and St. Denis Church. It's really fascinating. Thanks.
Thank you.
Anything else? Well, I just want to thank Chevron for coming out here. You guys have been great partners. I think you've done a really fantastic job with a monumental amount of work that had to happen out there over the years. So thank you for all your help and all that you're doing, and look forward to continue working together.
Thank you.
I'll figure it out.
All right. Chief Lemming, what do you got going on?
A couple things, Mayor, council members. By the next council meeting, we'll have a button on the Lockport Police website for overnight parking. So citizens, residents can go to the Lockport Police website, press the button, and just put down the license plate number, their address and name, and they can have up to 3 days of overnight parking. It will be more convenient. Most people don't really like to call on the phone anyway, so. They'll be up and running in about 2 weeks. Ryan did a great job getting this together for us, so thanks to Ryan. And secondly, Deputy Chief Dave Draxler has announced his retirement, and we're going to have a celebration for Dave at the police department on Friday, November 13th from 10 to noon. Many of you know Dave. Great guy, great boss, and more than anything, a really great person. So all of you are invited. Anybody watching on TV that knows Dave, they're invited as well. Be great to have a lot of people there. Wonderful guy, had a great career. 28 years he spent here, so I hope if you're not working, you can make it.
And Mayor and members of the council, the other item on the agenda that involves the police department a little bit, and Terry can chime in with me, is we've got a draft agreement with the fire protection district in regards to emergency vehicle preemption devices. Those are traffic light preemption devices that as the red lights turn green to allow them to access through the lanes and get there to the emergencies quickly. In the past, those have always been purchased, serviced, maintained by the fire department. The Lockport Police Department really didn't have any of these preemption devices. But we've received a grant from ComEd to be able to install several of those on our squad cars. We also, as we buy new squad cars, we are adding these preemption devices called Opticons. And we really started talking to the fire department as there is some maintenance costs and some responsibilities to those, and we only found it fair after discussing with them that the city should probably, bear the burden of 50% of the cost going forward for replacement or new preemption devices. As we get new development and have them pay for signals on their things, we're gonna ask to have these devices also put on those. So tonight, we do have a draft agreement for your review. The Lockport Fire Department has already paid to install these in most locations, and as we begin to roll out our vehicles to have these devices, we would like to enter an agreement with the Fire Protection District to cover about 50% of those costs. Doesn't happen very often. Lightning might hit a street pole or something, or there could be an accident. I think, Chief, I can't remember if it was like $1,600 a unit or something. It's not a huge liability financially for the city, but it seemed like the right thing to do. Anything you want to chime in with, Chief?
We have 11 of, the fire department has installed 11 of them on the poles in town. They have over 30 in their district, and they have about 2 to 3 of them get hit with lightning, and then we'd be sharing the cost of only the ones in our town, the 11. So.
Chief, does this go with the seizure money? Is that part of that, or is that can it be used from that?
It can.
We use that seizure money for everything, man.
That was great.
Yeah.
Only what's qualified.
Like
but
Darren
yes.
was
That's what I'm saying. Is it
gambling money.
qualified or not?
So,
Is this something we need for an action item for the next meeting? Or
Um,
do we want us to just review this?
it could be consent if you are in agreement of this, this type of language. I mean, it's basically a shared agreement going forward with the Fire Protection District, just for the ones in our city limits. And then we will be asking as development as, Gauger and Division gets a signal, we want to have those devices on there, but that would be another cost.
Sure. Is this something everybody's comfortable with on a consent agenda? Yes? All right,
Yes.
we'll put it on for consent.
Thank you. The next item on your, George, is here again. Next item on your agenda this evening, Mayor and Council, is a contract for design, engineering, and streetscape plan for the State Street coordination with the IDOT improvement project that we're planning to do with them in 2017. IDOT will be adding turn lanes on State Street, but aesthetics and beautification efforts are not included in that grant. So we would like to have V3 help us in designing and coordinating with IDOT in regards to making sure that the downtown improvements that we end up with have those aesthetic enhancements, have pedestrian safety improvements involved with them. We've included the contract not to exceed $62,575. And V3, the reason we kind of selected them is that we've used them a lot in the downtown. They already have some of the survey work done and completed. There will be additional survey work required, but they've kind of really been the go-to firm for us in the downtown, and coordinating with those other projects seem to make sense.
All right, thoughts, questions?
I'm sorry, the design, engineering, and the plans, those are retained by us, correct? Those are ours?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, those, we don't own those.
I have a few questions. So the plans that IDOT presented that had no streetscape at all, are those then final? Or are we adding? I mean, I thought,
This would
when we
be-
originally looked at the plans, I saw, no trees, no tree grates, anything like
Right,
that.
right.
So that is still locked into place, or are we now changing the design of what IDOT has presented?
This would be to help us figure out a design that we would propose to coordinate with IDOT. It would be at our expense. So it would be something we would have to budget for in 2017 if we were to make whatever the decision of these engineering improvements would be. IDOT would just put in very plain vanilla sidewalks. I mean, if we want to look at stamped concrete, colored concrete, cobblestone improvements, limestone enhancements, those types of design, how would they look? What would the function of those be, the locations of those? If we decide to go with those would be an additional expense at that time.
Okay, my next question is the scope of this project. Is it bigger than what the IDOT project is? I
Yes.
saw, okay, it's
Yeah.
to include all the other
Actually,
streets.
and I apologize, I think one of the slides that George sent us only showed part of it, and actually, I think I answered a similar question with Alderman Petracos, that it does expand beyond the IDOT project. We want to make sure, because we might want to add some additional parking in with those. We won't be able to get IDOT to pay for those improvements, but we could. So it would help us with a connection to the, from the public landing parking lot to potentially other parking lots further outside of the IDOT project. Whatever we ended up deciding in this design, we would want to take those beyond the IDOT project at some point in the future, and we could certainly work with the CIP and what the priorities are those would be. But we need to be able to have a design and a streetscape plan that everyone, is happy with.
I guess that would be my final question, is if we're willing to pay them $62,000, what is the budget on what kind of project we're looking at? Are we looking at a $2 million project that we're never going to do? Are we looking at a $1 million project? I mean, what, are we willing to spend money on a project we're never going to attempt to do?
Part of that question is we don't know, because we haven't designed what those features will be and how much of them we would plan to install. But I think it would be in the couple $100,000 range, not a couple $1 million range. And we could certainly fragment out and at least focus on between 8th and 10th as our feature area, and then as funding or plans develop, we can expand out.
And so this doesn't necessarily have to be done, the whole project, in 2017 with the IDOT project?
I think you would want to try to coordinate them in with at least the parameters of the IDOT project in 2017. If we want to do anything outside the parameters of that project, which this study would include, you could do that in 2017 if funding is available, or we can decide to do it at a later date. Having things pre-thought out and engineering ready on the shelf can be a good thing. Because without it, you wouldn't be able to meet those deadlines.
And then the work that we're thinking about doing would be coinciding with what they're doing at the same time? Is that what we're?
Yes,
Okay.
at least between the 8th and 10th,
Yeah.
which is where the IDOT.
And, for anyone who's worked with downtown, whether it's on Main Street or other groups, I mean, for years, whether it's master plans or ideas, those things have been, thrown around and done for many, many, many years, and often, these studies or these things get put on a shelf. But this is the first time we're actually doing engineering to actually make it happen. So, and this is where we actually, instead of it's just, dreams, it's a matter of, like, what's the reality? So, taking into consideration a lot of these old master plans, suggestions that are coming out of the Downtown Development Committee, which meets now, which is made up of downtown property owners, what do we want this to look like when it goes back together, but then actually putting the engineering together so we know exactly what the costs are, and we can actually coordinate it and finally make it happen after years and years of talking about it.
Main Street has some concepts, they have a designer that did some stuff, kind of pro bono, has some concepts. I mean, we will fold all of these previous and master plan ideas into what can be reality in the downtown.
Yeah, it's like once every 75 years we get an opportunity to do this. And so we hate to go through the process of ripping up State Street and not putting it back together in a way that really is pleasing to everyone, that makes it a destination and a great place to be. And like I think Ben mentioned, JR and Brian, we'll focus primarily on the areas that are getting torn up, but at least we'll have everything in place to go beyond those streets as budget allows. All right, any other questions? You guys want to put this on a consent, or do you want to put this on an action item?
Consent is fine.
Consent, okay? All right, consent, please.
Okay, thank you. Yes, so the last item I have on the agenda was a sidewalk service program memo that Amy had helped me with. This was kind of, there was a photograph included with this in regards to what we're talking about, what a service walk is. Does everyone know what a service walk is? It's the sidewalk that goes out to the street. The city doesn't, as we continue to build out the capital improvement plan and reconstruct the city, for the last 10 years, a lot of those service walks were removed from the parkway. We've had some complaints from time to time, and Alderman Smith has worked with Amy and I in regards to this, that maybe we should consider doing something a little bit differently in how we process these items. it isn't feasible for the city to replace these sidewalks where they are. There's liability reasons not to enter pedestrian traffic back into the street, insurance reasons. So the debate became whether, if they had these service walks, should those residents be compensated for the loss of that property? There are some concerns if we start to pay residents for loss of those items. Does that in turn mean we have to compensate them for bushes and grass and other things? And we don't want to hinder the capital improvement program more than we need to. But when we thought we'd add a line in regards to permanent structures, if the city is removing permanent structures like a sidewalk, that we could come up with a ratio in regards to compensating those homeowners in regards to that loss, so to speak. Is that pretty close, Brian? to where
It's
we're
pretty
going?
close, yeah. Thanks, Ben.
And so we've got a couple options in the memo here. We didn't want to necessarily have an equation where engineering has to spend time evaluating the size of these service walks, and it's $6 a square foot, and this one's 600 feet, and this one's 400 feet. Engineering time is valuable, but we felt, staff Amy and I had discussed that if we were going to go down this path, that a set fee would be something we would need to probably adhere to, just to keep the policy in place and consistent. I think the big question for us that we're looking for direction from the council is a couple things. One, are we willing to allocate additional funds in the CIP to do this? It's really fairly nominal. I asked Amy, for example, how many of these do we think we would encounter in 2016? She thinks maybe 2 or 3. So if we offer $1,000 a house, it's only $2,000 or $3,000 a year in the CIP. That's something we could certainly absorb fairly easily.
Excuse me, Ben?
Yeah.
If I could just ask, when we talk about sidewalks, what sidewalks are we talking about? The ones in the public?
Well, this is what we call a service walk. It's
Okay,
a
it's
sidewalk
up
that
to the-
goes to
that
the
goes up to
street,
the house.
not the sidewalks. Yeah, that's a
Okay.
different one. So service walks would be removed, and we would offer a flat fee, $700, $850, $1,000. Those are just items that staff came up with. We could agree to anything that the council decides to do. We could reimburse on a square footage, but we're not recommending that because there's so many variables that could be involved with that. You could also, decline this policy. This is just an idea, a committee of the whole, debate, discussion. We've had a few, complaints. I don't know how many of you may have received calls with the CIP rolling out and people just maybe having questions about, why we're removing these service walks and not putting them back. Usually when we contact them back and explain that, liability and insurance reasons, we can't provide the walkway back to the street. If they want to put in brick themselves, they can do that. We have had homeowners do that, but we haven't been compensating people. We haven't been putting brick walks back in. Homeowners have decided to deal with that on their own and/or not do anything on their own. I think staff is a little concerned if we start reimbursing people going forward. Do we need to provide compensation to anyone in the past? Are we able to say, well, council has now adopted a new policy going forward, these people are affected, they get the compensation, and if you had this done to you 2 years ago, you're not going to be able to get compensation from the city. So those are kind of the hot buttons that we're looking for direction on.
So what are you saying the past policy has been, that we have?
We have not
Have not.
reimbursed anyone for loss of service walks, right, Amy?
Has anyone ever come to city council and asked why they didn't get compensated?
I'm not aware of
for it?
anyone coming to this forum. We certainly have had a few phone calls and emails from time to time, one in particular this year that I think started this debate and discussion again with Alderman Smith.
Yeah.
So,
I'll just add a little bit. Ben, thanks for
Yeah.
great explanation. So, council, what has happened here is that, since I'm going to speak just for a second ward, but it seems like that's where maybe the issues came in. I know that's ones I'm hearing a lot, so, being at the older part does have sidewalks, service walks in this type of manner. There's been quite a few of those, and I think those that had an issue where they could not get to the front door, we have put in sidewalks, if I'm correct, Amy, so I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think the ones that I know for sure, the few of them, we have put in sidewalks in the front to get to the service walk. One I know particular, so This particular case has no sidewalk at all, so it's between it, there's only another house to the other corner, so this is only 2 houses here we're talking about on this street section. So, again, it led to nowhere. I think, I don't want to speak for everyone, but it seems like the majority ones are the corner homes. There could be a few that are in the middle of the block, but it seems like the majority of the concern is the corner lots, where they have maybe the garage entrance is on one, and then a service door is on the other side of the street. So it seems to be that that's where I'm hearing the majority of the concerns are. So as Ben stated tonight, since there looks to be no sidewalk and there is a concern here, I think, again, to be clear, the reimbursement is just for the portion, or just come up with a dollar amount that pays for the service walk they had installed years ago. Again, they haven't done this for a long time because of the way the city is now. I think the residents do realize that, and there's a liability for the city putting that into the street. I think that's pretty clear and understandable. So, again, this is one. I looked at this. I think Amy and Ben did a great job on it, bringing this forth and kind of dwindling down some numbers. Again, this is for discussion. Again, it's a council decision.
Well,
Anybody has anything?
I don't know if I had the same people that contact you that contacted me. I just had 2 instances. One lived on Summit, one lived on 10th Street, so I don't know if it's the same people. The one on Summit, it was our policy is when we do redo the roads, and we do the full reconstructions, these are taken out and sod is put in, and that's our policy. I don't have any problem with that. And the only other one was, and I got direction from Cristiano on this, is if our policy is that a resident wishes to put in what would be considered a service walk of brick or stone at their expense, we don't have any problem with that either, okay? But to go ahead and start reimbursing people because if we're doing this, these people just got brand-new water mains, just got a brand-new street, now we're gonna reimburse them for something. And so I just would not be in favor of reimbursing people, because our policy is our policy, now we're changing our policy, and then that just opens up that can of worms going back how many years?
There is one concern. We were worried about, bushes, sod. Where do we draw the line for compensation on removing some of these things? And I think we said, well, if a permanent structure, then we don't have to necessarily handle those things other than the sidewalk. But even that brings up the idea that we discussed this the other day, where we remove parking. We've removed parking throughout the CIP in the town, and we're not compensating people for the loss of their parking spaces and their lawns or whatever it is. Could that be construed as a permanent structure?
When we start doing, in my neck of the woods, we start redoing those streets, I mean, the whole southwestern portion of town is full of parkways. Whether it's gravel parkways or whether it's asphalt or concrete parkways, these are going to be removed according to our policy, which has been there for many, many, many years. And because then they're going to say, well, the people that have these service walks, they get compensated, well, then we get compensated. And all of a sudden, we go from a couple $100 compensation to $30,000, $40,000 a year in compensation. So I'm just not in favor of, it's 2015, and that's just not part of 2015.
Some of the sidewalks could be 40 years old, some of them could be 4 years old. It just, it kind of depends. I think most of them are much older.
How can it be 4? I mean, they
but
can't have a permit from the last 4 years,
Well,
but
I would agree. I was just trying to make an example.
So we're all on the same page. So that service walk, what we removed is just from the curb to the property
from
line.
out the tree,
So,
right here where you're looking from the
Right.
trees up forward.
so that, right up to the property line where a sidewalk would be, right? So we're all on the same page. And Amy, I know I asked this question, I don't know if you can enlighten us on why a sidewalk wasn't put in as part of the project? that something that was made at board level? Is that,
She'll tell you.
because I mean, that would, obviously, we're connecting community, and then that service walk would just die at a sidewalk, and we can connect.
Some of the homeowners, I understand, I mean, we remove these, and then you have their stoop, and it just kind of goes to their grass, and, hey, you could put your brick into your driveway, you can put your brick down to the street, but, you know, we
Right,
haven't
yeah,
been paying
connect
for
the
that.
drive. Most people do that now. The service walk, the front walk goes to the driveway, and it kind of simplifies it, but there's no sidewalks there, or?
Yeah, on this particular block, there was no sidewalks. There were a couple of areas on this project where we filled in some gaps, like maybe there was some sidewalk at the beginning of the block and at the end of the block, and we filled in so that there would be continuous. But on this particular block, there was no sidewalk, and there was sidewalk on the other side of the street, so we didn't include sidewalk. If we have a federal aid project and we have part of that project being paid for, we try to install sidewalk on both sides of the street. In recent years, we've tried to have sidewalk installed on at least one side of the street, just to save costs. We have not been putting sidewalk on both sides of the street unless there is a majority of sidewalk already installed on both sides of the street, and it's just a matter of connecting a couple of gaps, and then that's when we've been putting sidewalk on both sides of the street. There was another instance on Garfield Street where a resident had a service walk that came out and got terminated at nothing because there was no sidewalk. Originally, in the Garfield Street plans, we had sidewalk on both sides of the streets, and then the residents came out, the residents from the west side of the street came out and protested the sidewalk and wanted it removed. So we removed that sidewalk on that side of the street, and then that particular resident didn't have a sidewalk to terminate his service walk at, so it just terminated in the parkway. So it's a combination of different things. You know, sometimes it's, you know, because we just didn't have the funding to put sidewalk in along that block, you know, and sometimes there is. The vast majority of times when we remove these service walks, there's a sidewalk there to terminate it. There's very few instances where it just terminates in the parkway.
Gotcha. Okay.
And that's why this was brought to my attention. I thought I'd share it with the council, like, you know, again, it's a decision by the council. I realize there's policies in place, but I think for this particular instance, I don't think there was anything that we could really say yea or nay on this, as far as I'm concerned, as far as, you know, where we're at with this. So, you know, whatever the council decides.
Well, I mean, what's the general idea? Do we want to stick with our current policy and say no to changing it? Or is there a feeling that you guys want to move forward with compensation?
Well, I'll give just my opinion. I like to stick with what we have currently. I like that it is written in stone. I like that we meet the ADA guidelines, and it gives the residents the reason why we're doing it. I mean, you can come back and they can say, well, I had it going there, and it's like, well, no. These are the guidelines set forth by the federal, I mean, I think it's a federal guideline or whatever, ADA. So, I mean, that is why we cannot do this. So I think we have something to fall back on, and I think it's easy for the residents to understand.
Okay.
So,
If you start.
I mean, and I'll just finish. Yeah, there's so many, we're missing on so many projects. You can go up, there's more houses on Garfield. I didn't hear about that story about they didn't even want the sidewalk, but if you drive down Garfield, there's about 7 houses where it comes right into the parkway and stops. If you go down, when they did Jefferson Street, there's a lot of locations. I think you just open a can of worms. It's set in stone. Let's leave it. In my opinion, let's leave it where it is.
And I was just going to basically just kind of iterate what JR just said, is if you start changing, then it's going to open up a can of worms, and then we have to worry about more residents possibly being wanted to be compensated. And I think, you know, if we have a policy in place, I think we should just stay on course.
All right. If I get a couple more people say the same, we'll just kind of drop this issue then. Bob, what do you feel?
I don't have any strong feelings one way or the other, but taking the perspective of the homeowner, I grew up in a home where I had 2 options. I had the service sidewalk that went to the street, and we also had a sidewalk that went to our driveway, so when I took my ma grocery shopping, it was closer to go to the service walk to unload the car with all the groceries. She loved buying a lot of groceries because I needed to be fed, that kind of thing. But anyway, it was a lot of walking going from the driveway to the house. Whereas the service walk, it was a lot closer, especially in the wintertime. The sidewalk provided us a pathway to have the snow out of the way so we could unload the car. But I just bring up myself as an example, not advocating one way or the other, just sharing the perspective of the homeowners, that's all.
Okay, Bob has no opinion. Jim, what do you want to do?
I would think if we're actually paying money for this, something should happen there. Like, if we are paying money for this, it should be a city sidewalk. I'd rather put that money that we would give to the resident and just say, let's put it towards the sidewalk. And if we're talking about later about a 50-50 sidewalk program, there's an opportunity there to connect to the sidewalk there where the homeowner can do something there and connect some of those areas. And maybe that's another opportunity there later. So, and I also just want to bring up that where residents protested not having a sidewalk, I think is just it's a tragedy. I mean, with some of those things, because you try to get, it's a public sidewalk, it's for the public, it's not just for that resident, it's for people to walk front and pass, so.
And if we change the policy, we'll end up compensating those people who didn't want a sidewalk, and now they're mad, so now I have to pay them money. So I'm kind of for keeping it as is.
I agree.
Okay.
I'll just say final, and I agree with the majority of the comments that council said today. So, again, but my only concern was this one in particular, where I know that there's no sidewalk in place and the service walk stops. It's just like
Is this the side of the house?
Yes,
What's on the front of the house?
driveway.
Don't they have a door and
Yes, there's two doors.
and a
There's two
sidewalk
doors to
leading
this
to the
house.
driveway?
It's real close. It's like, yeah, out of the sidewalk in the front door. That's fine. But my concern is that this was here, and that's my only thing, that people, I'm sure, use that. It's there for a reason, and there is no even sidewalk to even go from the street to that. So it's something unique. I kind of was looking for support, but that's good. We're a council. That's how it works.
Okay. All right, then we'll move on. We'll take no action on this. Okay. All right. Thanks, Brian. Thanks for bringing it up. All right, Lisa.
Thank you, Mayor. The first item on the agenda is the revised fiscal year 2016 budget. So in everybody's packet, there were a few items at our last council meeting that we discussed that needed to be changed in the budget, of which one of them was removing the council chamber chairs from the budget. We added $20,000 into the budget for the sidewalk program. It was actually $20,000 of revenue and $40,000 of expense because it's a 50-50 program. And then instead of well 14 being drilled this year, that expense needs to be moved to 2015 because it won't be completed in this year. So we're just moving that project from this year to next year. So basically those were the changes. Any questions about the changes? Anything somebody wanted to see that wasn't in there? So at the next council meeting, we'll seek approval of the budget. We'll have the budget ordinance put together, and I'll put it on as an action item.
Okay.
Okay, the next item is the property tax levy.
Lisa, real quick, did you receive any public comment on the budget or anything? Anybody ever?
Not yet, no. We have a public hearing at the city council meeting, but we haven't had any public comment yet. Okay, so the tax levy. This is a chart that just shows how our property tax bill here for the city is allocated. About 57% of the tax bill goes to the schools, 13% to fire, 10% to the city, and then the rest goes to the remaining taxing districts. We talked about this a little bit at the budget presentation, but real estate taxes make up 40% of the city's budget, sales tax 21%, income tax 16%. The levy, how the levy is created. The county assesses all the property values in the town. The CPI is set by the Department of Labor. The Finance Department proposes a tax levy, and we're reviewing it here at the City Committee of the Whole. A public hearing would be held if it was necessary. Then the council would be looking to approve it at the December 2nd meeting so that it could be turned into the council no later than the 4th Tuesday of December. Some of the issues we have with the current levy process is that we're using estimates. We are not using actual numbers. Estimates are used for the EAV, it's used for new property, it's used for the exemptions. Actual values are not finalized by the county into the spring, so everything we're talking about today are just estimates. We're trying to base how much we should levy based on all these estimates. So if you don't extend enough in your levy, the extra tax revenue that you would get from new growth would be lost forever. Based on the 9-month estimates we have from the county right now, the new growth is estimated at $5.2 million. So that's a pretty good number for us. We are limited as to how much we can raise taxes on an annual basis. Our limit is 5% or the CPI. The CPI for this year is 0.8, so not even 1%. And there's a chart that just shows what the CPI has been for the last 5 years. What is the levy fund? There's a number of different things that we use the levy for. Just for example, plowing snow, police protection, EMA, pensions, liability audits, street lights, and our debt payments. So there's a lot of things that go into that levy revenue. So more specifically, our actual 2015 tax levy, what I have presented in front of you is $5.8 million for the levy. It's capturing the new growth in the city and the CPI. Some items that are a little bit more significant, bond and interest revenue was increased by $17,000. The largest increase in expense was the police pension at $200,000, and that was set by the actuary. We talked about that through the budget process. So what we're looking at in revenue is an increase of $80,000, excluding the bond payments. So part of that is made up of new growth of $42,000 and the CPI of $38,000. So this chart actually shows us what our assessed valuation. Of course, these are still estimates, but this is the first year in 5 years that we're actually seeing an increase. We had decreases for 5 years in a row, so I was pretty happy to see that the values of the properties in town are starting to go up, and we're looking at $603 million of EAV. That increase was $41 million over last year's number. So what happens? If our EAV goes up, what has to happen? Our tax rate has to go down. They have an inverse relationship with each other. So you could see this year, our rate that we're estimating is 0.9457. It's a 5% decrease in our tax rate. How does this impact our residents? So if you had a house last year that was assessed at $250,000, what we're seeing is that the county was assessing the properties at somewhere about 3% more this year, and you should have received something if your valuation went up. You should have received something in the mail, I think, in August, letting you know that that was happening. So it looks like most of the properties were being increased by about 3%. So we have an equalization factor of about a third, which brings the new EAV down. So if your house was worth $250,000 last year, it would be worth $257,000 this year, and that would increase your EAV from $77,000 to $79,000. Now, like I said, the rate went down, so it went from a 0.998 to a 0.9457, and what that means is that your city taxes, your city portion of your taxes will go down. And what we're looking at is it going down. If your house was worth $250,000 last year, it would go down by $16.80. Not much, but still something. And remember, we're only 10% of the tax bill. So if this happens across the whole city to all the taxing districts, then our residents really could see something as substantial in a savings. And the majority of that is due to that new property that came in. Now we're spreading all that new property value against everybody's tax bill. So I think this is a positive impact. We were able to take the CPI, which was just 0.8, but still we were able to take that and still have everybody's property taxes going down. So that's a positive thing. Now, for a $150,000 house, it would have a decrease of about $8.83. So it's not much, but it's something. I think that's a pretty positive message for us to be sending. I'm not suggesting that we go through a public hearing. You would go through a public hearing if you want to increase your taxes by more than 5%. And I'm not seeking to do that here to City Council, so we won't need a public hearing. Any questions? Okay.
Anyone? Everybody understand? All right.
Our next step will be looking to approve this at the December 2nd council meeting. Okay.
All right. So, new growth pays off.
New Growth pays off.
Okay. Thank you, Lisa, appreciate it. Pam, you want to talk about Small Business Saturday?
Yes, thank you, Mayor, Councilman. For those who were here last year, you may recall that in 2014 was the first year that the city presented a proclamation and supported Small Business Saturday, which is the Saturday following Black Friday and the Saturday before Cyber Monday. The program's Shop Small was initiated by American Express back in 2010 in response to providing an opportunity for small businesses to get their day during the holiday shopping season. So last year we did the proclamation. We put together 11 by 17 posters, which we handed out to businesses, and they displayed them in their window. And we just tried to encourage people to shop local, shop small, the couple weeks before the big bang happens. And so we had put some ads in the newspaper. This year, interestingly enough, Christmas in the Square also falls on the day of Small Business Saturday. So in working with Lisa Karras from the Chamber to take this program to kind of the next level, we are coordinating some initiatives to expand the idea and get the word out to people to try to shop small, not only on Small Business Saturday, but throughout the whole holiday season. So in preparation for this, Lisa had, American Express has the
Neighborhood Ambassador Program, and I applied for it using the Christmas in the Square event that the City of Lockport and the Lockport Township, I'm sorry, thank you for having me, that the City of Lockport and the Lockport Township put on every year. They approved us, and Pam and I went through the boxes of stuff that they gave us, and I think Pam brought some of the items over. They gave us 200 huge bags, which we used 200 bags to promote the Lockport Chamber last year, so we can use that instead, which is part of my presentation. But I just wanted to kind of reiterate what Pam said. Historically, the Lockport Chamber of Commerce participates in Christmas in the Square event by sponsoring a table and distributing promotional items on behalf of local businesses and organizations. It is a benefit of membership and provides additional advertising and visibility for the business at no extra cost to our members. Coincidentally, Small Business Saturday, as we've mentioned, occurs on the same day as Christmas in the Square, providing the Chamber and the city with an opportunity to take the initiative a bit further. The Shop Small campaign encourages shopping small through the holiday season, and we are planning to kick off this initiative on November 28th, which is Small Business Saturday, Christmas in the Square, to last through the holiday season of December 31st. What we're proposing is that Chamber members and businesses will have the opportunity to participate in this program. I'm going to send out a message, if this is okay to do, if they offer a special promotion, coupon, or free gift to customers during this time frame. Bags will be distributed at the Christmas in the Square event that will have all of these items and a list of participating businesses and the deals that they're going to be offering. The city and chamber together are looking to create an ad that will run in the holiday guide section of the Lockport Legend and the Home Horizon at a very reasonable cost, which will advertise the week of November 23rd. So it's actually perfect timing because it will run on Wednesday or Thursday, I believe, of the week of Christmas in the Square. And this will advertise the initiative along with a listing of participating businesses. So it's actually great advertising for all the businesses. It's great advertising. It kind of all works together. We are hoping that this is the start of additional support of small and local businesses, and we are aiming to add more initiatives during the coming year. And I just wanted to also let you know that I did speak to Pete Colarelli, the president of the Lockport Chamber, today, and he is in full support of this initiative. So thank you very much.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you, Lisa.
So this is a copy of the poster that we'll distribute out and have people put up in their windows. And then what we'll do too, in addition to all the promotional material that'll be in the bags, is we're gonna, kind of to tie it all together, and again, to try to really encourage people to shop small and shop local throughout the holiday season. We're gonna just put a little flyer in there too that gives them 5 reasons why you should shop locally. And then on the back side will be the listing of all the businesses and what their promotions will be. But just real quickly, 5 reasons to shop local. Improves our local economy, generates opportunities, because not only do locally owned businesses employ more people directly per dollar of revenue, they are customers of other local businesses as well, which in turn creates expansion of opportunities for local entrepreneurs. They also enrich our community. A small business culture is the heartbeat of every thriving hometown, they say. While franchises and national chains play a role in the national economy, small businesses provide an undeniable energy and unique sentiment that is the backbone of our community life. Experience a one-of-a-kind connection. When you're shopping with local business owners, they offer a sincere customer-owner connection. They are experts on the products they offer and sell, and their merchandise is carefully selected based on their customers' interests and needs, and owners will go that extra mile to guarantee personal attention to the customer. And then lastly, it does create a healthier environment because independent businesses build robust communities by making more local purchases and supporting vibrant town centers, which essentially can reduce traffic, habitat loss, and pollution. And as most of the small businesses are located in our downtown or along the 9th Street corridor. So we're really excited because last year when I made this presentation, and I looked back, I had saved a copy of the article that was written in the paper. I had said that I wanted to expand this into something like this. And so because the chamber and Lisa has more hours, we were able to really talk this through over the last couple months and really kind of get excited about it and put it together. And when we found out that Small Business Saturday and Christmas in the Square was on the same day, we thought that this would be, the perfect opportunity to really kind of blow this up a little more than what we did last year. And again, next year we hope to do even more.
More, exactly. It's a perfect stepping stone, so.
Very good. Thank you.
Well, great job, Pam and Lisa. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lisa, for all your hard work with
Yes.
the chamber, and we'll see you tomorrow night at the ribbon cutting.
All right, Amy, lay it on us.
Okay, for my first item, I have the 2016 Canal Days detour route. Every year around this time, we pass a resolution setting the date and time of the Canal Days Festival so that I can start the process of getting the permitting that we need to get to shut down portions of State Street for the festival. So this is similar to the resolution that we pass every year. The Canal Day celebration is scheduled for 2016, let's see, June 7th, the week of June 17th through the 19th, and will require closing State Street from 6th Street to 9th Street. And the intersection of 9th Street and State Street will remain open just like last year. So we are requiring to say that the closure will happen beginning at 3 a.m. on Saturday, June 18th, until 11 p.m. on Sunday, June 19th, so that we can send this off to the state.
Okay. Anybody have any issues?
No issues, just a quick question. Wasn't there a survey about Canal Days, and one of the questions in the survey was moving it to a different weekend?
Yeah, the rub that I think they found was that if you go the weekend before, it's got some festival in Joliet, I forget what it is, Mardi Gras or something like that, and then the weekend after is Heritage Fest, and it just is kind of the weekend that seems to, most people didn't care actually in the survey, but when it was talked about, those were the issues with moving it, so.
Just curious.
Amy, just thinking ahead, Second Street Bridge is going to be done 17th? Is that going to conflict with Canal Days when that goes on? So just kind of,
Potentially, yeah. I think there were already some discussions. I talked to Jody about it, and I think there were some discussions at this year's meeting about what they would do for the closure of the Second Street Bridge and how they would accommodate that.
okay.
I don't know what the resolution, or if they came up with a plan for that, but I know it was discussed at the meeting this year.
Don't forget State Street and IDOT's gonna be all torn up at the same time.
Yeah, when 2017, I mean,
We have to
it'll have
find
to
another
be
location or
a
something.
new idea. But in the meantime, are we okay with this particular one for consent agenda? Okay. Thanks, Amy. What else?
Okay, the second item is a letter of credit reduction for Oak Creek, Unit 2. About a month ago, I came with the first letter of credit reduction request from the developer of Oak Creek. They had finished installing all of the underground utilities, and that's what that letter of credit reduction was for. Now they have completed all of the street infrastructure with the exception of the surface course, and this is a second reduction, requesting a reduction for the amount that they put into the streets. So their letter of credit reduction is requested to be reduced by $217,148, and this will result in a remaining letter of credit value of $472,855.
All right, any questions? Good?
Good.
Okay, put it on a consent? Yes. All right, thank you. All right, Amy, I guess that's everything, yes?
That is everything for the agenda. I actually was requested to make another announcement tonight, if that's okay. The LTHS choir boosters asked me to announce that the Madrigal feast is going to be happening the weekend of December 4th, 5th, and 6th. And right now they have plenty of openings still for the Friday night performance and dinner. If anybody is interested, you can email me and I can email you the form, or I think it's also available online. If you Google Lockport Choir Boosters, you can find it online too, but I have the forms too. So
That's great, and they're performing at the high school?
it is going to be at the high school this year, in the auditorium.
All right, fantastic.
And there's dinner there, right?
Yes, it's a dinner. The tickets are $30 each, and it includes a dinner and entertainment, and my daughter is performing. So,
Is the dinner going to be in the cafeteria?
no, the dinner is actually going to be on the stage in the auditorium, yes. So,
I was curious.
yeah.
All right, well, thanks for letting
I
everyone know.
requested an update on the Madison Street Bridge, but that's okay.
What was that, Jim?
I said I requested an update on the Madison Street Bridge, but that's okay.
Oh, sorry. Oh, he did. JR asked me to update everybody on the Madison Street Bridge. When we first started the project and the Madison Street Bridge was closed, it was only supposed to be closed for a week. However, when the asphalt surface was removed off the bridge deck, we found some issues that needed to be addressed. So that bridge project is taking a little bit longer than anticipated. I'm hoping that it will be within the next week that it'll be surface reopened. Fingers crossed.
One of these days, we're gonna dig it up and find gold, and it's not.
Something good.
He says we're to dig it
Always
up
the
and
bad.
find there's nothing wrong underneath.
Correct.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping.
Right.
And Amy,
I don't think that will ever
any
happen.
updates on the Gauger Bridge?
The Gauger Road Bridge is going along as planned. They had 30 days, supposedly to, like in the contract, they had 30 days to close it down and get all the improvements. I think it's been closed for a couple weeks now, so, they still have several more weeks work left.
Asphalt plant closes in about 3 weeks, so it'll be done.
Got to get it done.
Yeah.
I was talking to Amy and then Chief Fleming. It was just amazing when they first put up the barricades, the motorists, they would actually move the barricade just so they could go through. Now they can't because the bridge is literally gone, but it was just amazing how people would just move the barricade.
Yeah.
Barricade, schmarricade, right?
Yeah.
Amy, I just like to ask, and Chief, can you tell me where we are with the flashing lights on State Street and 8th?
Amy and I, we had, or I think it was Joe and I had just talked about that. So the DOT, I think we're moving forward with putting it in the project for 2017. I don't know that we're going to be able to meet the demands of IDOT to get it done before that.
You're talking about the pedestrian crossing? Yeah,
Yes.
that'll probably all be tied in with the
Okay.
2017.
We originally requested the beacons on top of the pedestrian signs that they installed out there, and we were turned down. And there were several things that they wanted us to do in order to and even then, actually, it was just a conversation that I had with Chris Kirsten, who is in charge of the 2017 intersection project, and he said that he thought that if we removed one of the trees, in the Parkway, just north of Public Landing. And we got rid of a crosswalk on the south side of the road and moved it to the north side of the road. And then they thought that we could reapply for the beacons and that we might get them approved.
So just trimming the branches, when do you have to remove the whole tree?
The whole tree.
Holy mackerel.
Unfortunately, all of those items, grinding off the existing pavement markings, removing the sidewalk, putting new sidewalk in on the north side, putting new pavement markings in, and removing the tree in the state right-of-way, all requires permitting and approval by IDOT. So by the time we go through that whole process and stuff, it probably wouldn't save much time. We could just add it into the 2017 project and then.
Okay, because, was a terrible accident there. You would think that they would want to do something also to speed up the process and make that a little bit safer over there, so.
One thing, I reached out to Larry over at Delwood Tire, and I asked him if we were to throw a coat of sealer on top of his Delwood parking lot and put some parking stripes in there, if he'd let us put, public parking, say 5:30 PM to 1 o'clock in the morning, during the weekdays, Saturday, 12:30 to 1 o'clock. Use it as a public parking when he's not in business, and he was very open to the idea. So we may be able to get a nice chunk of parking for evening hours at the Public Landing Restaurant and the Public Landing here shortly. So that will help, because I understand everybody does the mad dash.
Right.
So we'll try to help in that respect before then.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Amy. All right, Big Joe.
Mayor, council. I have the fuel contract for 2016. Our current fuel contract is due to expire. The current fuel supplier's contract will end December 31st of 2015. The contractor is responsible for providing fuel for the police department, public works, and other city vehicles and equipment. An advertisement for the new contract was published in the Herald News this past Monday, November 2nd, stating that all proposals for the City of Lockport's 2016 fuel contract are due by Tuesday, November 10th, 2015. The recommendation would be results of the bid opening will be presented at the next City Council meeting, looking for final approval, so the contract will be in place before the existing contract expires. Annually, we use about 70,000 gallons of unleaded and about 20,000 gallons of diesel fuel. So I'll be bringing that straight to council, looking for approval at the next meeting.
Okay. So do you need this on as an action item now?
No, not at all.
Okay, I
I'll
got
be bringing it straight to council, though, so we have the new contract in place before the existing one expires.
Okay, does anybody have any questions about this? We're good? All right, Joe, thanks.
Thank you.
All right, any new business out there, my friends? No? Good? Terry, Mr. Pizzeria at the Point. Come on up, man. I see you have a comment card. What's happening?
How you doing? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of council, administration, gallery. I'm here tonight, I may be a little confused, so just bear with me. I've been tracking a case that I'm involved with Will County Land Use, and it's about the property on Smith Road and Archer Avenue. It's a two-story building that I believe Norbs is looking to try to move into in this near future. Well, as we've been protesting the idea that any extensions be granted to him by land use based on his criteria, or let me just say, based on his past record of action. I just know the integrity sitting at this council today wouldn't want to do business with the likes of this person based on what he's created, the fraud, the level of honesty that he does not display in business. I have here all the documents. Some of you may remember back in 2011, I actually signed a lease with him to occupy that building. We gave him a deposit, a substantial amount of money. I actually put my sign in the windows. Most of you folks have been in Lockport long enough, you may have remembered it. We signed a lease in May 2011. We were supposed to take occupancy July 1st, 2011. he never followed through with one item of the initial contract, the lease that was signed. And mind you, he signed this initial lease.
Well, Terry, let me stop you and get some clarification first, because that's not the city of Lockport, so I don't have any jurisdiction.
Well,
on it.
actually, the reason I'm here tonight, Mayor, I have the document, the letter written from Christine, our city planner, to based on the submission of documents, bear with me, folks, I'm just a little bit nervous.
Yeah.
I have the document here.
Yes, the property is not located in the city of Lockport, it is in Will County. The reason why the city of Lockport has the ability to review the proposal is because the property is within our mile-and-a-half jurisdictional review. In addition to that, it's within our planning area. So the county notifies us of these projects, and then we have the ability to review them and provide comments to their staff for consideration when the proposal is being considered. Now, the item would have to go to our plan commission and then ultimately be brought before the council. However, this past month, or in October, we had pulled the item off the agenda because Mr. Tabas is working with the county. He's appealing some of their decisions with respect to his permit when he initially started the work on that building, when it ceased, and he has some issues with that. So we pulled it off the plan commission, and basically, until we hear further notice from the county, that the county is going to put it back on their agenda for consideration. We're waiting to hear back. Christiana has consulted with them to see if we're going to be putting it back on our November plan commission agenda, and at this point, we have not received a response from the county as to whether or not they're moving forward on their end of it. And the reason why we have to know is because if their meetings are like the week after our plan commission meeting, so if we put it on for November, then it would go to their land use committee in November, and they would need our comments and recommendations.
Well, then here's what I'd like to do, Terry.
Actually, just to clarify, the meeting was last night, which in October, I was at the meeting in October. What he did in October was he requested a continuance in person. I showed up last night, which was the continuance date. At that time, I found out that he was requesting another continuance. But now when I spoke with the land use committee last night, they sent somebody out to explain to me why I couldn't make my case there. They took a hard line to say that this guy is so far behind, so out of compliance, that December 1st, they're nixing the whole project based on the fact that he's just not ready. He's just not got the documents. He's cheated in so many different ways.
Let me stop you, Terry. That's fine. What I want to do is, I mean, clearly, you have a past with this individual. I never heard the guy's name. I don't know him. He's a good guy, bad guy. Obviously, you've got...
Well, if I could just finish just one thing.
The thing is, I don't want to hear it. I want to let it go through our process. And if there's a personal problem with the guy, talk to me.
He's actually being
personally.
investigated for fraud based on
That's
this,
fine,
all of
Terry,
this
stop,
lease.
stop.
I mean,
I don't know the guy, and I don't need citizens coming up bad-mouthing somebody.
Well, I'm not
Maybe
bad-mouthing
it's
him. I could-
perfectly legitimate.
I could give
But I
you the
wanted to
case
go
number,
through the
Mayor.
process, Terry, of my planning department and the council, and the county. Let it go through the process, man. If you want to talk to me in private about somebody, tell me in private.
Well, that's exactly why I'm here, Mayor. Here in this document that was sent by Christine, it says November 4th it was going to be voted on. That's why I'm here. Now, the fact that Pam just said it was taken off their committee list, that was never discussed last night. They told me to make sure I'm here tonight. This is coming from Will County Land Use.
To tell me what? That he's a
To
bad cat
make
and don't
sure-
approve it?
no,
That hasn't
no,
even gone
no,
through our
no,
planning
no,
department.
Mayor, that's not what I'm asking you to do. I'm all for the progress of that property. I know Norb's, I know the restaurant they've had. I'm not against them. You have to understand that. I'm all for the progress of that property. But the fact that this guy is cheated every tradesman that worked on that building originally, they're all waiting for checks. There's everybody involved with that property has got liens filed on everything he owns. I have documents here, shows liens everywhere on this guy. I could show you how he's changed documents and names. This guy just shouldn't be in business with Lockport.
Terry,
Better
I've
yet,
asked you to stop talking about it. I believe you, but I don't think it's something that we should be talking about here in council. Let it go through the process. I'm asking you to stop talking about it now. I've asked you 3 times, and you keep talking about it. Please respect my
Well, I
request.
thought this was public comments, I just
It
was...
is, but I don't
public comment,
want to hear
sir.
disparaging remarks about something in public right now. I don't need it. Let it go through our process. We talk
Well,
to
let
Pam
me
in
ask you
private about
this.
it. It's the appropriate thing to do.
Will I
If
be
somebody didn't like you and your business and they came up here and started bad-mouthing it, I don't know what's true and what's not true. I want to let it go through where everybody can see the stuff. I want to let it go through the process, Terry.
Will I be
You
able to
understand?
present then to the committee as it goes through the process, why, instead of doing it on the public venue?
Yes, that's what I'm telling you to do.
Okay, well, if it's been taken off the list, how would I find out when it goes back on and maybe
Please
follow
talk
through
to
at that
Pam and
point?
keep in contact. Keep in contact with me. It's okay. I will let you know what the proper process is.
Okay,
Just don't think this is the appropriate place to do it.
If at all, just one last question. Is in this process, I know there's a easement water main that's being discussed with this property, and I'm wondering, is there an annexation being discussed on this property as long with what was submitted? Is he actually trying to annex along with negotiating that easement?
Yeah, he had talked, I don't know if it's the same guy. There was somebody who talked about annexation a while back, but we didn't, that wasn't something we were pursuing.
So in all reality, the wheel has kind of stopped on the progress here, and it's back at administration, and nothing's progressed. So I haven't missed a boat on trying to get my case heard. That's my main thing here, is that I've tracked this case for a long time. I've tracked him for a long time. I want to make sure that, we all have to do our due diligence in life, but we all have to make the right decisions in life. And so I'm relying on you folks to make the right decision based on the reputation of Lockport and who we do business with. So I appreciate the opportunity, Mayor. I do apologize for upsetting you. That was not my intention. My intention is obviously to inform you. So thank you for your time. And if you don't mind, our next conversation could possibly take place in private, like you said. Thank you, sir.
All right,
And
all right,
Pam,
Terry.
if I might be able to reach out to you too. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen?
All right. Well, that's the end of Committee of the Whole. We have a motion to adjourn? All right, that was Peretta and Petrakis, sorry. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, you guys want to take 5?
Sure.
All right, do 5. Let's be back at no later than 8:45. How's that?
Okay.
All right. Alice, can I get a roll call for the city council meeting?
Alderman Pertakos?
Here.
Alderman Galugly?
Here.
Alderman Smith?
Here?
Alderman Deskin?
Here.
Alderman Peretta?
Here.
Alderwoman Bartleson?
Here.
6 present.
All right. Looking for a motion to have a consent agenda.
So moved.
Second. Alderman Deskin, Alderman Peretta. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, we have 7 items on here. We have the regular city council meeting minutes from October 21st. We have the committee of the whole meeting minutes from October 21st. We have our payroll ending in October 25th. Approval of various bills. There's the PZ case 2015-012 for final development plans on Building 7. There's the Heartland Dental lot, Lot 8 for PZC case 2015-013. And then we have a resolution for surplus equipment update on the new copiers. Can I have a motion to pass a consent agenda?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Alderman Smith, Alderwoman Bartleson, all in favor?
No roll call.
Oh, I keep forgetting we had to do Tommy and his roll calls. Yep, let's do a roll call, please.
Petrakos?
Yes.
Galugly?
I vote yes on all matters of the consent agenda except for item 4, various bills that pertain to my employer. On that item, I abstain from voting.
Thank you. Alderman Smith?
Yes.
Alderman Deskin?
Yes.
Alderman Peretta?
Yes.
And Alderwoman Bartleson?
Yes.
6 yeas.
All righty. We're going to make a proclamation. We'll do our small business Saturday proclamation, which I'd like to make now. So the proclamation declaring November 28th, 2015 as Small Business Saturday in Lockport, Illinois. Whereas in 2010, American Express founded Small Business Saturday to help businesses with their most pressing need of getting more customers, and whereas this single day has grown into a powerful movement and more people are taking part than ever before, and whereas small business is the cornerstone of our free enterprise system and since the birth of this country has represented opportunity, independence, and the fulfillment of dreams for generations of Americans, and whereas small business owners who work long hours juggling family and career responsibilities and serving as community volunteers are integral to our country's prosperity and to the vibrancy of our community. These entrepreneurs are fundamental to our economy, and through the opportunities offered by the men and women who own and operate small businesses, many of our citizens are able to pursue their dreams of a better life. And whereas the City of Lockport, along with the Lockport Chamber of Commerce, supports our local businesses that create jobs, boost our local economy, and invigorate neighborhoods, and whereas residents of our community and communities across the country are being asked to support small businesses and merchants on Small Business Saturday and throughout the year, and whereas the City of Lockport, along with the Chamber of Commerce, wishes to recognize small businesses for the key role they play in keeping our economy strong. And now, therefore, I, Stephen Streit, Mayor of the City of Lockport, Illinois, and Will County, Illinois, do hereby proclaim November 28th, 2015, a Small Business Saturday in Lockport, and urge all citizens to join us with this observance as we celebrate the accomplishments of small business owners and their employees and encourage the development of new small businesses. So I'd like a motion to approve this. So moved. Alderman Peretta,
Second.
seconded by a couple names out there. Sounds like JR. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And again, Pam, thanks for putting that all together. All right, so next is we need a motion to approve the October 21st executive session meeting minutes that
So moved.
Alice passed out.
So moved.
Alderman Deskin,
Second.
seconded by JR. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Ben, what do you got?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. The first item, CA1, is we're going to revisit the 50/50 sidewalk replacement program with resolution number 15082. I do want to make one clarification, and we did discuss that the council had talked about this in 2012. We got further desire from this council at the last meeting to adopt this program. But under Section 2 of the resolution, there are 4 items. We wanted to add a 5th item that we will add language before we have it signed that this program is only available to individuals and residents only. It's not intended for developers to take advantage of. So I think if we add the one line that just says this program is available to individual residents only, that would keep any developers from trying to take advantage of this 50/50 program. And if you guys are okay with that, I would seek approval to adopt this, and then we'll make sure that we add that line before it's formally signed.
All right, so for discussions, we have a motion to pass.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay, Alderman Galogly and Beretta. All right, Jim, is that satisfied? I know that was one of your big concerns.
Yeah, just, there's some loopholes in there, just, where somebody may take abuse of that, and we were saying, well, it's at our discretion, but we weren't saying it's our discretion, so if we can just tightening up that language was great.
All right, so everybody's comfortable now?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, Mayor and members of council. The second item, CA2, is a formal agreement with Granicus for adding video and document services to our website and being able to have the equipment purchased for video and indexing of documents for the council business. We had a couple different questions from a few of the members. We did disseminate some emails around and got some answers that, yes, clearly the data is owned by us and will be to our purview in the future. Indexing, we found out, we went through a webinar with the company since the last meeting. We will be able to index those documents without having to provide a laptop to Alice, and she won't have to be bothered with trying to achieve that during the meeting. we would just ask that she note the time in her regular minutes in regards to when those subjects change, so we should be able to do that indexing without purchasing the laptop. So we would remove that request for $1,000 for a laptop on this purchase. With this new equipment, we hope to have better video and audio capabilities. I know we actually have some technical difficulties tonight that the live broadcast has the visuals and the audio is not quite working right. You know, those videos will be available online tomorrow, but the live feed we're having some difficulties with tonight. But this software and equipment does come with training and support. We have discussed this with Donna and Alice a little bit, and internally with IT, that we feel this is a good direction to go, and we're just seeking approval.
All right, can I have a motion to approve?
Just real quick, though, this is
Well,
also...
we'll discuss it.
Oh, yeah,
Do we-
motion approved.
Yep.
So moved.
Did you get that, Alice?
I did not.
Petrakis, and then Deskin.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so, yeah, the discussion, go ahead.
Just
It's
that-
totally goofy, by the way.
Yeah,
I hate that.
that's right.
It's like, motion to, I don't want to approve, I want to talk.
Right.
I get it, all right.
Or, that this is just if this works out well here, we want to do it also for planning and zoning, kind of make everything consistent and
Absolutely.
for those committee meetings and stuff, so we're all consistent and everything, and we don't have to do the court reporter anymore.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. We've discussed that where, and we've actually conferred with the Lockport Community Television volunteers that they would be available to run the meetings for the planning and zoning here as well. Right now, the city does pay for a court reporter for verbatim minutes. That is not required by ordinance or by law. We feel that the minutes that we do for the council meetings, along with the video, is enough public record that we could do the same thing for planning and zoning, and that would be a nice cost savings to the city. And frankly, those cost savings would certainly cover the cost to change to this software with Granicus over time as well. So at some point, I guess, once the Granicus training is over and we transition to the city council, we would probably be able to make that transition at planning and zoning in the following month. We just need to probably make them aware of that and, make it happen for you.
Okay.
I have a question.
Sure.
In regards to the training. If Donna's going to be doing the indexing, is someone else going to be training besides her in the event that Donna will not be able to index for a particular meeting if she won't be here?
Yes, we actually thought of that. Ryan will go through all the training as well as the IT person, and he can train additional people. We actually have Peggy in the front office also as kind of the backup to Donna, and we can train her. So, yes, it's a good point. We need to make sure that we have some cross-training available.
All right, everybody in favor of this?
Yes.
Okay. That's an aye. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, there you go. All right, what else we got going on? CA3, we're just gonna.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. We discussed CA3, the real estate exchange in the downtown with the parking lot behind Paradise Bay, but we've discovered that we may need part of that parking lot to achieve a potential quiet zone status with an application. So we're not recommending that transaction at this time. We'd like to go ahead and table that basically until further notice. We should have some answers in regards to that over the next few months. So we may bring this back in the near future, but there's potential that if the quiet zone implications get approved, then we wouldn't come back at all at this point.
Okay. All right, very good. All right, we're going to move on to a public hearing.
Do we have to, council, do we have to come up with a date for that if we table it?
No, actually, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, what we're recommending is just removing it from the agenda. We'll put it back on the agenda when we have this issue regarding a potential quiet zone resolved. You may be seeing it fairly soon. We've talked about a couple of different ways because we'd like to move forward with the land exchange, but also reserve a right to be able to trigger a reconveyance of the property should we need it for a quiet zone.
All right. Well, I'm going to do the public hearing. This public hearing is being held pursuant to Illinois law to hear discussion and public comment on the proposed budget for the coming fiscal year, which has been on display for the requisite length of time. I ask that Lisa Heglin review the highlights of the budget.
Thank you, Mayor. A line item budget was posted to the city's website after the last council meeting and also given to the deputy clerk for public inspection. Notice was placed in the newspaper 10 days prior to invite public comment. And we also talked about it earlier at the committee of the whole meeting some revisions. So we're seeking if there's any public comment to our budget process.
All right, we'll start with council. Any members up here have any further questions about what's going on?
No.
Okay. Anybody out there in the sea of people that are here tonight? Okay. All right, there being no other persons that would like to make a comment, I will go ahead and close this hearing. Okay, thank you. All right, what do we got next? Pam, we're going to talk about the tap-on fees.
Yes. As the council may recall, back on October 21st, we presented to the committee of the whole that the incentive for residential development, which reduced certain fees by 50%, was due to expire on the 6th of November. I provided some clarification and additional information as what was requested at the prior meeting. Upon conclusion of this discussion, council directed staff to extend the program through 2018 using a sliding scale as a means to encourage developers to act on development sooner rather than later. So this evening, I present to you the proposed sliding scale, which would allow for the 50% reduction to stay in place through the end of this year and for the first 6 months of 2016. In 2016, the second half of the year, the fees would increase to 60%. And then the first half of 2017, they would also be at 60%. The second half of 2017, they would increase to up to 75%, along with the first half of 2018. And then the second half of 2018, they would be at 90%. And then starting on the 1st of January in 2019, the fee structure would be back to 100%. I also included in the report just a breakdown of what those municipal impact fees would look like for the single-family detached units, single-family attached units, and multifamily units, and basically just for informational purposes. I just want to clarify that this does not include a reduction to the impact fees related to school districts, park districts, library districts, or the fire district, and that it does not include any building plan review fees that would be associated with residential. And the reason why not is that we actually really don't have any plan review fees for residential. That is something that we will be looking at over the next few months to see how we can perhaps incorporate something like that. In addition to that, the reduction program, if extended as proposed, would not apply to any existing development that's governed by an annexation agreement that already has a reduced fee structure, especially if that fee structure is even less than the percentages that have been identified. However, if their fees in their annexation agreements would not be comparable to whatever the fee structure is less than at that time, it would apply, but anything otherwise it would not. So as the fee structure would increase over time, whatever's locked in the annexation agreement would then remain for those subdivisions.
All right, looking for a motion to pass this resolution.
So moved.
I'll second.
All right, Petrakis and Galogly. How's everybody feel about this particular scale? We good?
I have a problem with it. I don't think we're given enough amount for us to build our market again with that 50/50 stopping by mid-2016. I personally feel we should have it a little bit longer in 2016, maybe the whole year, and then start this scale, just to give us another year of attracting builders and so forth.
Well, the difference, though, is a PUD, it's a complete different beast than, say, an infill property somewhere in the middle of downtown. So you're going to accomplish exactly what you want if we have another builder come to City of Lockport, and then they negotiate, through the PUD process.
What I think whether we keep it at 50% all through the year or not, or keep this particular scale, I think one thing that's important is we need to make sure we send out some notification to all the developers, builders who work in the city, who own property, let them know what's going on. I want them to, get in gear, make sure they get engaged. It's not like, it's 50% forever. So hopefully they can understand this scale, which would help motivate them. And I think Darren's right. When it comes to PUD, it's always going to get negotiated anyway. This is really for getting those infill project guys
Okay.
in gear. So,
I think it's great. I think get into the next couple of years, and it's a graduated scale there, and gives everyone warning, gives a deadline date, January 1st, 2019. It couldn't be any clearer. So,
okay. Well, why don't we do a roll call on it? Start with Jim.
Alderman Capadona, I'm sorry.
Capadona? He's not here.
yes.
Gallogley,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Deskin,
Yes.
Paretta,
Yes.
and Bartleson.
Yes.
6 yeas, motion carried.
Thank
Okay.
you.
All right, what's next? Thanks for putting that together, Pam. All right, next is Board of Local Improvement meeting. Do we have to do one of those crazy meetings?
Well, it's another meeting. I won't categorize it as crazy, but we've done...
Meeting in the meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Meeting within a meeting. So, Mr. Mayor, if you could open up the Board of Local Improvements meeting, and this is a requirement because this particular project assesses a fee on two adjacent property owners using the special assessment law of the state of Illinois. It's not a tax on anyone else or a fee assessed to anybody else. It's just the two adjacent property owners, and they have consented to this process. In order for us to authorize payment, though, we need the Board of Local Improvements to approve the expenditure as required by Illinois law. Then it comes to the City Council for final approval.
All right, so I will, let me
This
call...
is the final pay estimates, this-
Okay.
hopefully the
No more
last
meetings in a meeting?
meeting within a meeting.
All right, well, let me
yeah.
call a meeting of the Board of Local Improvement. Can I have a roll call for that, Alice?
Yes, it is, I'm not sure, I don't remember, Deskin?
Joanne and
or
myself.
Joanne and you. Okay.
And
And the mayor.
That's right.
Me, Joanne, and Darren.
Forgot about that.
I'm here.
Alderman Deskin.
I'm here.
And I'm here.
Okay, and I'm here, so we're on board. All right, go ahead.
And I'll turn it over to Amy for a presentation of what's being requested.
Okay. The Illinois 7 Thornton Street intersection improvement project is currently completed. I think the last final punch list item was completed last week. The final contract, the original contract amount awarded was $1,996,216.54. In August of 2014, a change order was approved for an additional $60,000 for a total approved amount of $2,056,216.54. The final contract amount was $2,035,228.24. To date, $1.8 million has been paid to the contract, and the remaining balance of the contract is $202,378.37. And the contractor has applied for the final pay estimate in that amount. And our recommendation is to approve the final pay estimate in the amount of $202,378.37 to D Construction for the remainder of the project.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve pay?
Make a motion?
I'll second.
Okay, can I have a roll call?
Yes. Bartleson
Yes.
and Alderman Deskin.
Yes.
Okay, it's approved. Do we need to stay in this meeting for the next item agenda?
Nope.
It'd be a motion to adjourn the
Okay.
Board of Local Improvements meeting.
All right, looking
I'll
for a
make
motion.
that motion.
Second?
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
We're back in the regular City Council meeting, and I think
And
Amy's going to present the same thing, or ask you to consider the
now
same
the
thing
city
she just
council
said.
has to approve the pay estimate, so.
Okay, did you guys need to read the minutes from the meeting? Got it. All right.
Like layers of layers of onions.
Well, I do, I mean, we could do, I'm looking for a motion to approve.
I'll make the motion to approve,
Our Thornton Street intersection final payment. So that's Darren made a motion,
Second.
seconded by Alderman Paretta. Any discussion, concerns, questions? Okay, so can we do a roll call, please?
Petracos?
Yes.
Gallogley?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Deskin?
Yes.
Beretta?
Yes.
Artelson?
Yes.
6 yeas. Motion carries.
Okay. And then ED2A, that's, okay, so that's, it's listed kind of separately, so I get it. All right. Next page, oh, that's everything, we're done. Hot dog. All right, any open floor comments?
I just have just one thing I failed to mention. On Monday, I attended a breakfast in Hickory Hills that was sponsored by Congressman Dan Lipinski. We had two people from City of Lockport receive Congressional District Number 3 Senior Citizens of the Year Awards. One was Phil Rittenhouse, and the other one is Edie Kropinski, and they will both be here in, at the next meeting for recognition here.
Nice.
Yep, thanks for going to that, Darren. Yeah, I'd nominated Phil, the guy's everywhere, he's the hardest working guy in Lockport, I think, so we look forward to recognizing him here at council next week, or our next meeting. All right. If there's nothing else, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Alderman Petracas?
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Gallogley, all in favor?
Aye.